And I think we're live on Wikipedia Weekly. Welcome, folks. Welcome to Wikipedia Weekly, episode 129, Walrus Overtime, Zoombombing your Quarantini. So I am your host, Andrew Lee, also known as user Fuzzheado on English Wikipedia. And we are streaming live on multiple platforms with multiple people. And let me get that thing out of my face. So this is being sent out live to Facebook Live, to the Wikipedia Weekly YouTube channel, also to Periscope and Twitter, and to Twitch all at the same time. So folks who are watching us on multiple platforms, welcome. You're definitely encouraged to send comments in, and this is using a platform called StreamYard. And one of the nice things about this is it allows us to see all the comments coming in from multiple platforms at once. So whether you're commenting on Facebook Live or YouTube or on Twitter, we'll see those comments coming back to us, and we'll be able to bring up some of those comments and discuss them. So as we go through some of the topics that we plan to talk about today, feel free to also ask questions or come in with comments, and we can react to those as well. So again, my name is Andrew Lee, also known as user Fuzzheado on English Wikipedia. I'm currently the Wikimedia strategist with the Met Museum, and I also work a lot with Wikimedia DC on projects with Wikipedia, Wikidata, and cultural institutions. Richard?
Hi, I'm Richard Nipel, user Pharos. Also currently Wikimedia residence at the Met Museum and part of Wikimedia New York chapter, coming to from Brooklyn. And we just are joining you after the Wikimedians in regions of the United States meeting. So glad to join you now. I think Rosie, next.
Yeah, hey, hi. So I'm Rosie Stevenson Goodnight. I edit as user Rosie Step, and I'm coming to you from Nevada City, California. You see me all over Wikipedia. With Women in Red. I'm with Wikimedia District of Columbia. I'm on AFCOM. So yeah, glad to be part of this Wikipedia Weekly. Rob.
Hi, yeah, I'm Rob. I'm an academic librarian, and I'm on the board of Wikimedia DC. You can find me on Twitter as at Wikigamaliel, and for the last 2 weeks, I've been Wikipedian in residence of my apartment.
I was about to say there's a dramatic announcement there somewhere.
Welcome.
Yeah, so as Richard said, we are kind of in the overtime of the Walrus calls, we call it, the Wikimedians active in local regions of the United States. Is that right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So
which is a monthly call of Wikimedians active in their local areas, people who might organize what we would today call a user group. Usually it's once a month on a Monday evening, but because of the coronavirus and to help bring people together a little bit more, we're having twice a month this month, and we had it 2 weeks after the first call, and it was well attended this time as well. So that was nice.
Great. Yeah. And if you haven't noticed, the Wikipedia Weekly network, as we're calling it now, has been revived after a few years of kind of dormancy. And I think it's been a really nice way to bring a conversation to the community that really needs it at this point. So we're not any strangers to collaboration online, but having this kind of live interaction and dialogue is really useful. So you might have seen some previous content on this channel, which was courtesy of Jan from the Swedish chapter, where they were putting up some content around Wikidata editing, around Wikidojo, which is kind of like showing folks collaborating on editing Wikipedia articles, and also some Swedish content around editing Wikipedia. So we're definitely want to be very inclusive. If you have any ideas on what kind of programming to put on this network, let Richard or myself know. We're very open to ideas and to put those kinds of programming on here, especially since so many of us are sitting at home and we're not going to be able to be face-to-face with any Wikimedians anytime soon. This is a network that we were going to try to build up to have more interaction there. So we're going to talk a lot about those things throughout this podcast. But I thought what we could do is kind of go around the table and kind of have folks talk about what kinds of things they're working on. And if any of these things spark any ideas or some comments, feel free to comment, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll see them in our comment stream, and we can surface some of those on the screen here. So, Rosie, you've been very active on International Women's Day, which happened in March. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and what kind of activities that you've had.
Yeah, I would love to. So, March 8th was International Women's Day, and I woke up that day thinking, you know, I'm stuck at home, and what can I do? What can I do to kind of celebrate this day? And what I decided to do on that day was to improve articles about women doctors, because here we are in the COVID era, and there are so many healthcare workers that are, really the heroes of the day. And I thought, here are all of these biographies on Wikipedia, and some of them could, with just a little bit of help, could be so much better. And so I thought, okay, well, I can do that. That's what I'm going to do on March 8th. And so I did 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and maybe after a few hours, I had improved 31. And when I say improved, it might have been copy editing, it might have been adding a reference, or adding a wiki link, or adding a category, or updating the talk page with wiki projects. But I just felt this sense of accomplishment that this was something I could do for someone else. And it didn't take much from me to do that. And yet, it was going to be lasting. And then the next day was March 9th. And I thought, well, what am I going to do today? And I thought, I'm just going to continue down this path. So I improved literally a couple hundred women's biographies of women medical doctors. So that's one thing. Another thing I kind of wanted to show you all here is this thing called Visible Wiki Women, which is something that Women in Red is participating in, and so are other communities from around the world. And what it is, it's an image campaign to add more images of women into Wikimedia Commons. And from there, if appropriate, adding it into their Wikidata item, their Wikipedia article, and so forth. So I'm not sure if you can see my screen, but here's we've got dozens and dozens of images that got uploaded since March 1st. I'm scrolling, and Andrew, can people see this?
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes.
So you can see these are all newly uploaded images into Wikicommons of notable women, and some of them have articles. You can see if it's in blue, obviously some of them are red linked, which means no article. And so, yeah, I'm glad to be kind of participating in this with people from all over the world. It really falls under the Whose Knowledge banner. They're the group that came up with the idea, and yeah, just glad to be a part of it. Thanks for hearing me out on that.
That's great. And, for folks who don't know, Rosie was the co-founder of this whole Wiki Women in Red project, and it's been a huge success. And I think if you, at the top of the screen, did I really read it correctly? That's 159 different projects that you've had so far, or?
Yeah. So we do different online edit-a-thons every month. We've kind of found a sweet spot now of running 5 a month. Each of them lasts at least a month. Sometimes they last longer, like Visible Wiki Women is a March and April project. Each year we have one thing that's like a major focus. Last year it was suffrage. The year before it was women scientists. This year it's sports. And we chose sports because this was supposed to be an Olympics year, but I'm not quite sure whether that's going to happen. And yet, so that's one of our events. And yeah, so yeah, we're up to 159 or so.
That's great. And, one of the things that for folks who are kind of new to it, the real problem that we have is the systemic bias, right? That a lot of women have not been written about in the what we would call reliable sources or academic sources. So sometimes we have this conflict about trying to establish notability with these folks with sources that we're familiar with, and that's something that's a challenge you always have with your project, right? Is always having pushback against that.
Because Wikipedia is a reflection of society, right? I mean, we can only create articles and improve articles on Wikipedia if we have sources that we use to, to support what we write into our encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
And if society doesn't write about women or write as much about women, then we have less material to use in creating these biographies or improving them. So, reflection of society.
One thing I do want to say, not to take this too far off topic, so feel free to cut me off. But it always bothers me as a librarian, I guess, when people say there aren't sources, and a lot of times there are, but a lot of times these sources are not accessible to a random person Googling. And that is the real problem, because a lot of the scholarship about women has come from the last 50 years. It's not in these public domain 150-year-old books that are scanned in on Google Books that anybody can read. They're in scholarly articles that maybe you don't have access to, or you have to get a JSTOR account to look up. And the sources are there. And if we can connect people with these sources, we can write these articles.
Right.
Yeah, it also depends kind of like where you are in the world.
Yes.
Like I might start an article sitting at home on some topic, and then in the pre-COVID-19 era, I might catch a plane and fly to a foreign country and, for some conference. And that night I'd want to go back to working on the article I had started, but I don't have access to those references anymore. So it makes it difficult just to write in general, whatever the topic is. You're a librarian, Rob. Like, what do you think is kind of the way to get around that?
I think we just do the work that we've been doing to try to connect people and sources. And we have to work a lot harder because people are just so used to Googling things now. And so I think I don't want to get too far into the weeds now, but we've got to a lot of the things that like the Internet Archive's scanning project where they loan out books that are still in copyright, but they have there's a loophole in California law that allows them to be a lending library and they can lend out electronic copies. And I think we use stuff like that, or the Wikipedia library, getting people, they give out accounts that have been donated by, to JSTOR and databases like that have been donated by the vendors, and get those out to editors. And we need to use more things like that and connect those things, to use Wikidata or these Listeria lists or other means to connect these sources to people. Because we can't, this whole paradigm, it was great in 2000, when Wikipedia first started. It was great. This whole paradigm is let me type into Google and see what I can come up with. But that doesn't work anymore. And if we're going to fill these gaps, we need to work a little harder. And we need to encourage people who are writing about it to think beyond just typing that name into that Google search.
So go ahead, Richard.
There are a lot of things that aren't even in, libraries, things that are, more recent or a little bit less high profile that, are of importance to a lot of communities. And, there's been some discussion about how to handle that in the movement, and it's still ongoing. But there are there are a lot of communities that, aren't even represented in libraries yet, and might never be. And even if you go for a project that was started 10 years ago, you can often find their website. If a similar project was started today, they only have social media presence. And so, do you cite it from Instagram? I don't know.
That's a really good point. I mean, if you're writing about places, people, organizations, you can quote newsletters and formal publications, but so many even formal professional groups are going to this model of using social media, using blogs, using Twitter feeds, and so we're going to have to sort out what sources can we use in the future. Wow, we are getting to the weeds here, aren't we?
Well, if we can't get in the weeds, who else will? So
that's true. Yeah, that is our job.
But I think this is one of the great things
that we'd see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the great things about the podcast is you get to see this, for better for worse, the sausage factory tour of what goes into creating Wikipedia articles. And most people see it from the viewer side of what you find in a Google search, but few people get to see all the kind of work behind the scenes. So whether it's wiki projects, talk pages, RFCs, these are things that we hope to show what's going on in these things.
Well, maybe not all of it. I don't think people want to see some of the things I've seen.
Yeah, it's messy. It's messy. It's kind of impressive how good the product actually comes out to be in the end. So.
Yeah, in the aggregate. Yeah, it's like I always think of that quote from Winston Churchill that I'm going to butcher. Like, democracy is the worst system, but it's better than all the others, or something like that. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wish we could edit this and later and put in like a Wikipedia article and put in the correct quote. But
well, one of the things that we've kind of been doing, like talking about getting into the weeds, is like, because we're all sheltering at home, or so many of us are sheltering at home, we've taken to like having new workflows that include all these online meetings and online training with Wikipedians that we probably wouldn't have connected with otherwise. We would do an edit-a-thon in a particular city and a particular group of people would come. But now that we're doing these things online, and I think I was like involved in 4 of them just last week alone, it's, it opens it up to like these really big audiences and using different platforms. And I think, that maybe we could talk a little bit about that, like some of like the things that we're learning from doing these things.
Right.
Does anyone else have experience with that this last week or so?
Yeah, it's a whole new world. It's like, it's not a new world, but it's just I'm just experimenting, like talking to people I haven't talked to in a long time, or I haven't talked to before, like live streaming a podcast on Facebook. This is new, it's like all kinds of things. And not to change the subject, but I want to press the like button on Sydney's comment there. She's absolutely right.
Yeah, so Sydney Poor there says there are still many women with missing articles that have available sources. Every time that I look, I can find one without much effort. That's true. Absolutely.
Hi, Sydney, and thanks for your comment.
Yeah,
well said.
Great. And Sydney did something that some of you might want to do. If you want to comment, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, then we can see your face and your identity when you comment, which is really useful to have there. But as Rosie said, we've been doing a lot in our community to try to connect with each other, especially since we have probably a dozen conferences, face-to-face conferences that have been canceled in 2020. Some big ones that we talked about last episode about the Berlin Wikimedia Summit or Wikimania later this year, or supposed to be later this year, but then a lot of regional conferences and even kind of smaller conferences. So we're scrambling, but the funny thing is that we are used to online collaboration, but maybe not this synchronous live kind of collaboration. So we do have 2 things to analyze and try to figure this out. So one is a Telegram group called CROW. So this stands for Conference Remote Options for Wikimedians. And that is something that you can join in the conversation there. There's also a page on Meta, which is called Wiki Project Remote Event Collaboration. And I believe we have a ticker somewhere around here. Yes, we can show you that. So that is the Meta page, and we definitely welcome you there. Rosie, myself, Richard, and some other folks have been trying out some of the open source platforms. So I think one that has been quite popular in our community is called Jitsi. So Jitsi Meet is an open source type of project that you can install on your own servers, but they also have a free server you can use, which has, the scalability is sometimes great, sometimes not so great. But if you go to meet.jit.si, then you'll go to that and you can just make a room. It's kind of like Etherpad or some kind of place where you make a unique identifier. Then anyone who has that key can go in and join that room. And then another platform that we've been looking at is something called Big Blue Button, another piece of open source software that has been integrated into a lot of learning management systems like Blackboard and Canvas and things like that. So we're experimenting with these to try to figure out what these platforms can do to try to replicate the types of things you might want to try at a face-to-face meetup, like breakout sessions or huddle sessions and things like that. So what have your experiences been, folks, with other kinds of platforms to try to recreate this face-to-face dynamic over the year. Actually, we could actually look at Thomas's comment here. How have you found Jitsi for very large meetings? We had some problems with greater than 30 participants. Yeah, I think that you're right in that. I think the Jitsi recommendations is if you go over 50, you're really rolling the dice with reliability. So if you're hitting 30, that's already up there, especially with the free server. If you're not running your own server, then you might run into some issues. Yeah.
Something we're going to try to do is work with some people at the Wikimedia Foundation to see if we can install some of this, some of the software like Jitsi or the Big Blue Button on the Wikimedia servers. Probably to start on the cloud servers, which are a little bit easier to have access to, and maybe if it works out and if there's demand, to put it on some of the more established servers, and maybe grow that as time goes on, because it is an important community resource, especially at this time. And it's something that, now that we're not spending so much money on meetups and on pizza, maybe it's something that
I am still spending the same amount on pizza.
Yeah, I'm spending more on pizza.
I'm supporting local
down on my
businesses.
pizza budget.
Yeah, so this is the interface for Jitsi. This is the general room interface. You just type in some kind of room name. If you type in something like foobar, you're probably gonna run into other people, which might be really risky. But basically, it'll ask you for, permission to use your camera, and then you'll go in and you'll be in a room with other people. Like that. I'm using the camera and mic right now for this conference, so I'm not doing that. But you can see that you can even dial in with a number if you want. So this is just kind of like Etherpad. You just type in a name of a room that you want to use for coordination, and people can go ahead and meet there. But again, you're kind of playing a little bit of chance with the reliability of that room because it is a free server and it may not scale up to like 30 plus people there.
I did an event, a small event last week using whereby.com. Does anyone else have experience with that one? And I liked it. I liked it a lot. But it was there were a few of us in it. So I can't say how it would scale.
Whereby, okay. Take a look at that.
And that's another audio-visual conferencing solution?
Uh-huh.
Cool.
Nice.
I think the free version only allows for 4 people. Otherwise, you got to start paying.
Right. So, Rob, tell us what you've been working on. You've been doing some graphing and cool stuff.
I've been obsessed with, I've been spending the pandemic being obsessed by colonial and early American portraits back when they all died of cholera and dysentery and yellow fever instead of COVID-19. And so what I've been doing is trying to, I've been kind of obsessed with connecting the subjects of the paintings to the people themselves and then connecting the people to each other. This is a tool, this is the ancestor tool in Wikidata. And so if you turn it on, and you can go to any wiki person in Wikidata and click on it, and it'll show you their family tree if they're connected in Wikidata. And so this is a really, this is my go-to example of what I've been doing. This is the family tree of Herman Melville. And so I found we're connected, a lot of these portraits. Some of them were in Commons, some of them I got from museum websites. And then I connected them all together because I'm just obsessed with this sort of stuff, and it's fun for me anyway.
So Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick.
Yes.
Right? And were any of his descendants really famous, or they're just there?
They're somewhat famous in the sense that they were rich enough to have portraits painted in the 1700s. In all seriousness, yeah. I mean, these were, they were upper class, they were business leaders, they were society leaders. And so they're not notable they're not famous anymore. But at the time, they were of somewhat note, certainly. And so if we can, map all our Kardashians on Wikipedia, there's no reason we can't map the Kardashians of the 17th and 18th centuries as well. But and so you can see, I just find this fascinating, just using Wikidata to connect art history, to connect genealogy, and you can see all the different painting styles up here. I particularly like this one. I'm going to butcher her name, but it's Magdalena Gainsvoort, Melville's great-grandmother. And this
Gansevoort.
Thank
That
you.
is a Brooklyn name.
Yes. These were, some of the patroon families of New Amsterdam, I think. But yeah, and she's famous for her fashionable red shoes. You really can't see it here, but this painting, you can see a lot of the paintings of the day were dour, scowly portraits, very Puritan-like, and she's got her fancy red shoes on, and this is fantastic.
Nice.
So how do you turn on this tool again, Rob? Where do you find this?
I think it's a gadget in Wikidata. But if you turn it on, it will always be in the left column on that list of tools in Wikidata. Let me see if I can surf over there and see while I'm screen sharing.
Yeah. So under the preferences, there should be a gadget.
Well, first, I'm going to try to. Oh, this isn't working. Hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have anything queued up.
That's right.
Yeah, I think if you just go to preferences of gadgets, and then you'll always see the ancestor tool over here somewhere. Well, let me go to a person. I guess I have to go to a person's article.
Right.
And then it'll always be there, and you could just click on it, and it'll generate that on the fly. Oh. It's not a saved file. It's not anything that anyone's edited. It just generates that automatically from the information that's already in Wikidata. Right. And also, I wanted to come here to show you the red shoes because it's pretty amazing.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Check out. Yeah, I really like this portrait. But anyway, so you can, so turn that gadget on, and anybody just click on it, and it generates it automatically. And so you can see what you couldn't see on the screen before is her ancestors, because it only shows you 5 generations at a time. You can see how she's related to the, and I'm sure Richard will correct my pronunciation of these New York names, but the Van Rensselaer family and the Cortlands.
Oh yeah, I love all those Rensselaers and Cortlands.
All very famous New York names. Yeah, Rensselaer and a meatpacking district.
Yeah, apparently I think Gansevoort is like the name of the meatpacking district or something. So that was a contribution from the Peanut Gallery.
Gansevoort Street, yeah.
But Melville was old blood, old muddy.
Yeah, I was thinking about visiting his house. I think he had a house in downtown Brooklyn that he owned for 3 months and he never moved into, but it was in the Brooklyn Historical Society newsletter. So I could get there sometime.
Very cool. So, Richard, what have you been working on?
So I've been building a bit on what you've been working on with Zoombombing. I don't know if you want to share your Zoombombing first.
Talk about Zoombombing real quick first?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk about Zoombombing. So I've been working on, this, but it's got that big, ugly deletion
scarlet box of shame.
Yes. So Rob and I talked about Zoombombing as a phenomenon earlier this week, and there was no article about it in English Wikipedia. And to my knowledge, I don't think any Wikipedia edition had it. And then suddenly all these stories started popping up because all these schools started using Zoom in a major way this past week or last week. And there's just a disaster. There's just disasters after disaster of school districts not choosing good protocols on how to protect the exact Zoom ID of these conference rooms. So people would kind of jump in and do lewd things or shout offensive content. So there's a number of news articles about Zoombombing, this phenomenon of unwanted participants in video conferences. So I decided to make the article about it, and that has multiple sources. We're talking about New York Times and Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, TechCrunch, certainly a number of sources. But obviously someone didn't like the fact that this is a fairly new term. And if we go to the entry on the deletion debate here, you'll see, for those folks who've never seen the behind the scenes of Wikipedia, this is part of that sausage factory tour. So when someone says, I don't think that should be here, then we go to this, which is the, we don't like to call them votes in Wikipedia, but it's basically a debate on whether it should be deleted or not. And you'd be surprised how much labor and how many words are spilled to debate whether an article should stay or go. And
imagine a homeowners association meeting, and you'll have some idea what's going on here.
Right. I think it's your classic.
This is a real thing. It's like, this isn't just limited to what was happening at schools. It was, there's an example of a couple of wiki editathons that happened last week, and the facilitator put links to the Zoom meeting on Facebook and promoted their events and, welcomed people to come and learn how to edit. And that was all done in good faith. But unfortunately, some random person came in and Zoom bombed in a not particularly lovely way. And so, yeah, we're experiencing it, within the wiki universe, and certainly, as Andrew said, like at schools and such. I think the article should stay.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is that it sometimes just takes for a name that sounds nice for this phenomenon to really get traction, right? We've had Skype problems before. We've had this type of thing before, but not until now in the COVID-19 era, when we have this much use of this one platform, which is Zoom, and Zoom bombing just has this nice alliteration to it. So I think
you have this perfect storm of teachers all over the world who have no idea how to use this technology, all flocking to use it at the same time.
Right.
Coupled with the phenomenon of teenagers all over the world bored and have all this pent-up energy and are going to play pranks.
Right. Right. All it takes is like one teacher to say, somehow paste the Zoom link out in some semi-public forum, and suddenly it's a disaster. So it's not just school districts like getting worried, but then even the Anti-Defamation League has come in with a guide to how to combat this. So it's a problem. So anyway, this is the debate behind the scenes. So you can see that it's delete, merge, redirect. There's like all kinds of different advice here. Probably the trend that you see here is that it'll be kept, but there's a significant number of folks who think it should be redirected, meaning that, it should be part of the Zoom article. Or you're someone like Richard who says, what?
Yeah, I ate it. So I was inspired because I thought it might be deleted. But I was concerned. So my suggestion was to keep or merge to impact of the coronavirus on teleconferencing or similar, because it's not a Zoom-specific phenomenon. It's mentioned it affects Skype. It affects any sort of other live audiovisual platform. And I was inspired to start my own article, which I called Coronavirus Impact on Teleconferencing, and it got this sort of like not English name recently, but maybe we'll fix that. And the idea is to obviously it's had a huge impact on teleconferencing, both in terms of usage and in terms of all these new cultural phenomena that have popped up. So I did create this article to include Quarantinis in it. So we now have an article on Quarantinis on English Wikipedia. You're welcome. So mentioning both Quarantinis and things like dance parties, they're virtual dance parties, which people are doing. There are a lot of people are using it for like religious services, all sorts of things, which maybe they used it in a very small capacity before, but now is becoming more mainstream. So I do think this is a big sort of cultural phenomenon that's happening, and I would like to have a place for this on Wikipedia. So that's why I started a weird article like, coronavirus in the age of teleconferencing. I also started one on personal gatherings in the age of coronavirus, which I had to userify, which means that I had to put it to my user page because it was proposed for deletion, and it was pretty strongly against it. But the idea there was also to bring together things like the birthday parades that they've been doing for some kids and others, and different singing on balconies, which is another sort of phenomenon that's happened where people, use social distancing to make new sorts of physical arrangements that are interesting. I think this stuff should be on Wikipedia, or at least somewhere in some neutrally edited encyclopedia point of view. And I hope we can not be too conservative, and we can cover some of this social media first culture. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I just looked up virtual happy hour. We don't even have a Wikidata item for virtual happy hour.
Yeah. Well,
so that it on awaits, its own,
it awaits you, and you can link it to it from. You can be listed as an aspect of teleconferencing during the 2019-2020 coronavirus pandemic.
Right. So yeah, we have some work to do there. The only thing I have in Wikidata is a article on virtual happy hours planned for minority medical students, scientific article from 2013. So that is not related to
What?
Ahead of the curve.
That's Wikidata.
Yes, exactly. The other article that I created this week, which is related to COVID-19, is the N95 mask article. So believe it or not, there was no article for N95 mask, and it was just a redirect to the CDC article or on the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Hazard article. So that is a thing now.
Well, that's an actually important and useful one that millions of people will find useful.
Yeah, I know,
either directly or indirectly.
And I'm really surprised that NIOSH hasn't been all over this, because I know they're very active with Wikipedia. So this seems like the kind of thing that they would want to be all over.
But maybe they'll get to it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, they've got other priorities right now. So
well, it seems to have some traction. So after we created it, they oh, thanks, Samir. Yeah. So there was no N95 article, and after I created it, this looks like there's interest in it. At least there's a little uptick there.
But yeah, there's a lot of page views.
Yeah, it's a lot of page views.
So I think John Sadowski, who's the NIOSH Wikimedian residence, helped contribute to that. So the article is quite long now, with a comparison with surgical masks versus the N95 mask and the European equivalent of the N95 mask, which is a good thing to have. So the interesting thing about this is that there actually was a number of languages that had an N95 mask article, but you know what they were? Chinese, Japanese. They're all the Asian languages.
Oh,
SARS in 2003. So that's really interesting that it was kind of an Asian Wikipedia phenomenon, that they'd had a very extensive articles about N95, but in the West we didn't really have it. And suddenly now we're waking up to the N95 mask articles.
Yeah, it's interesting how many new things happen on other language Wikipedias, and we're so conservative and slow moving in many respects.
Right.
On English Wikipedia.
If you look at something,
well, look at this. I'm looking in. I see besides English now, there are 8 other languages, other language Wikipedias that have an article on the N95 mask. So
yes.
It certainly has grown.
Oh yeah, and it looks like some areas that were pretty hard hit.
Yeah. So now we do have at least French and Norwegian, which we didn't have before I created the N95 in English. So sometimes you need, a bridge language for other folks to translate or to get the inspiration. So before it was like Chinese, Hakka Chinese, Japanese, and then some of the Indian languages there. And they didn't have the Western languages there until now. So. But you can see that.
Oh, yeah. You've got a very good point. Yes.
Like NIOSH had plenty of diagrams ready to go here. So you can see it's a lot of stuff.
That's a really good image, too, that you have in the lead. Is this a new image? Did you take that photo, or did that come straight from Commons?
That was in the Japanese article for N95.
Yeah, no, you can't get your hands on a mask in America now.
Yeah, I can't get my hands on one. Exactly. So, N95, mask there. So, Richard, anything else you've been working on? NIOSH, not NIOSH, really. COVID-19?
I've been working on the category epidemics in art because there's been, there have been obviously, this is not the first epidemic in human history, and we have quite a few. We have quite a few paintings and sculptures and like church buildings and columns that have commemorated plagues over history. And I thought it might be, kind of interesting to look at the history of how, human culture has processed these things before. And, obviously we have this group, the Sum of All Paintings group. And, some of us are looking at, the cultural aspects of epidemics. And I hope we can, categorize them and have a nice summation of some of the experiences in human culture. As like some people are like writing articles about them now. There's
some interesting things in illness in art as a category here, which has got some interesting.
The history of the cholera in Exeter in 1832. There's a little light reading. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I like this category, epidemic monuments and memorials.
Oh
and it makes me pause and think about the monuments and memorials that might be built in the future to, document what we're going through right now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There was a very moving tweet that I saw that somebody suggested that like a work of art that you would see in 2030 was there would be screens like, like a Namjoon Pak thing in a museum or something. There'd be screens showing 10-year-old Zoom meetings, and then people would start disappearing from the meetings to illustrate the people who had died.
Oh.
And I wish I could remember. I wish I could give credit to whoever came up with that tweet, but that was just it just stopped me in my tracks.
Right. Yeah, this is an interesting comment from Thomas. Like predictions on how many total coronavirus pages will exist by the end of the year. Be interesting to track that in some way, in terms of the evolution of these articles. And we just saw one simple explanation of like why N95 was like Asia related, and then once the English one is written, then we see the Western languages get it. But interesting to see that progression for multiple topics related to COVID-19.
Well, I don't know if we've said it yet, but I think we should, that there's a whole wiki project that's devoted to COVID-19. For those of you who may not know or understand what a wiki project is, it's not common in all language Wikipedias, but certainly there's hundreds, probably thousands of wiki projects on English Wikipedia. And what it is just a group of editors who decide to work in a particular topic area. So for Wiki Project COVID-19, there are already thousands of pages that fall under that domain. I'm looking at something that says 1,485 pages, and it's only like a subcategory. So there's even more than that. So to answer your question, Thomas, I have no idea how many, but there you can see how many have been tagged on the talk page with the COVID-19 Wiki Project COVID-19 label. And so that's what this is an image of. But I'm going to bet we'll go over 2,000 for sure.
And you can already get a Barn Star, or rather 2 Barn Stars that have COVID-19 designs, if you contribute in a fruitful enough way.
Oh, is that right? Wow. There we are.
Oh my goodness. That's a little black humor for these times.
I'm of two minds whether I want a infected Barn Star on my talk page there, but that's really cool that they have the Barn Stars created there already. So for folks who are new, these Barn Stars are kind of like awards or accolades we give to each other in the Wikipedia community, and you can customize them for like different things that people do. But for folks also who are new to it, this is kind of like I wouldn't quite call it a scorecard, but it kind of gives you an idea of the overall health and quality of the articles. And so this is fairly typical that the bulk of the articles are going to be kind of start or C class. They're not, only a fraction of them are going to be at the top of the class here. But this is a matrix showing you how important an article is and also what the quality is in our rating system that we have there. Pretty cool. Great. So other things we can show folks. Well, we had a little experiment this week, which I thought would be kind of fun to show folks. We have been experimenting with different types of video conferencing like this. We've been using Zoom. We've been using Jitsi, Big Blue Button, Google Hangouts Meet. So I ran into something weird from Mozilla, the folks who created Firefox, and they actually run like this kind of junior version of Second Life, a thing called Hubs.Mozilla. And what's kind of cool about this is you can actually go in and make a virtual world, and it's really kind of neat. And it's a project that most people don't know about. So let me show you what this looks like. We actually went to one of the sample islands that they have there and asked a bunch of Wikimedians to go in there. And you can actually customize this and actually have folks do things in this place. So maybe one of you can also jump in there and have an avatar walk around so I can interact with someone. But this is what it looks like here, and hopefully you'll see this fairly smoothly. This is a 3D world that is, showing you this rendering all in a browser, which is pretty amazing. So I'm just running Chrome here. I didn't have to download any special software. That's how kind of powerful a platform we have now with 3D. And what I can do is say, there's no one here. I can say, enter the room. And you can kind of customize your avatar. So I'm just going to call myself here Fuzhedo. And I can actually customize my look. I can make myself someone like, let's say, this guy. And I'm going to let other people join if they want. I'm going to send this out to everyone out there. I can say, join me in Wikimedia Village.
Join us. If you're nostalgic for Second Life.
Anybody who remembers Second Life from like 18, 19, 20 years ago.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at that comment about.
Wait, what? This has come back? Yeah. Oh my word.
So normally you can go in there, you can talk to each other, you can even show video. What's really cool is that as you walk around, you're going to have this kind of binaural thing. So if people are far away, it's going to sound quieter. If they're talking on your left, you're going to hear it straight out of your left ear. So it's really cool. As you're walking around, you can kind of literally jump into conversations and little cliques and groups and things like that, which is kind of neat. But what I hopefully will be able to show you is I can move around with my arrow keys in this virtual world. Yeah, someone on Facebook saying, oh my word, it's like brightly colored RuneScape. It is. And the cool thing about this is, Rob's in there. Super Hamster. Oh, wow. Look at that.
All right.
All right. So what you can do, you can actually copy and paste images in here. So I put in 2 Commons images here. These are images I've worked on or worked with at the Met. And then this is one of Rob's favorite paintings there, I think. And there's Super Hamster. I can interact with them. I can actually chat with them. I can go in here and say, hi, Super Hamster. Yo, robot. Here's Rob. And I think this is really fascinating, not because it's so high fidelity, but because, we're all in different places. Imagine you can like customize your own Commons galleries this way. You can do virtual tours. Not only that, but look at this. I actually pasted in the video. This is actually a video that that Rosie, myself, we all use at events. You can actually go ahead and play this YouTube video. Oops, I need to sign in. foo@bar.com. Okay, and you can actually play this video. This is actually a video the Wikimedia Foundation created, which shows all the edits we did in 2018. But what's cool is you can play this and look at it. It's actually 3D warping it, and you can watch it together, and you can even hear the audio, I think. Is pretty cool, and I can fast forward it and go through. So just think about all the power in this browser. Go ahead, Rosie. You were saying?
Yeah, I mean it's cool because you can hear the music too, so it's not just visual. I think what's funny though, it's like it brings back the remnants of something from so long ago. And here we get to enjoy it kind of like souped up today, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah. And
makes me wonder like things like MySpace, like, is that going to have a comeback?
Yeah, I need a Friendster simulator. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can see this replacing any kind of like conference platform, but in terms of
Oh, Rob, yeah, that's just crazy.
Oh no, that's Super Hamster staring ominously. But it's really interesting in terms of a shared space. So this is like the simplest space that they give you as a starter. But you can actually load up like the Parthenon.
Let's go to the Wikimedia venue.
Which venue?
Wikimedia 2020 venue. I believe.
Yeah.
We can load that.
You can have the whole catalog of every Wikimania venue. You can have like Casino Lario, Italy. You can have the Youth Hospital from 2005 if people want to recreate that. This is kind of cool. So I find this really fascinating just because you can do so many neat things here. So this is a very small island, but you can actually go in and change the scene. So you can actually go in and change, well, you can insert objects there, but you can actually change it to other types of rooms, which is kind of cool. So I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this world if you want to try it. And Rosie, I expect you to be here since you were a Second Life addict at one point.
Yeah, you'll catch me here later.
All right, so let's see. Anything else to show you? So actually, let me show you one last thing. So these paintings here are not just random paintings. These are actually related to some of the work that I'm doing with the net. They were trying to show the influence of this one socialite in Paris, and she was the subject of this painting by John Singer Sargent, one of the most famous portrait painters of that era. But one of the things I've also been doing, I'm going to leave the virtual world right now, is showing you some of the stuff that we're doing in Wikidata. So that is a 3D version of kind of what we can show you in 2D. So this is just a simple Wikidata query that starts with her, Madame Gautreaux there. And you can see that she was kind of like the Kim Kardashian of her era there. She was actually painted by multiple artists in Paris at the time. The most famous probably is this one, Portrait of Madame X by John Singer Sargent. That is a painting in the Met, but it also, you can show through Wikidata the impact of that, right? So that painting was the inspiration for the black dress worn by Rita Hayworth in the movie Gilda. And this is all modeled in Wikidata. And what's cool is that if you're just looking at an art database or a cinema database or a books database, you wouldn't be able to see all these connections. But because Wikidata is like the sum of all databases, you can now see the impact of this one woman in art, in literature, in cinema, and in the glam world, which is really cool. So whenever I show this to kind of museum folks or folks in the library and museum side, they suddenly say, this is why linked data is really interesting, right? It's not just theoretically interesting, it is visually interesting, and it shows all these connections. And what if you could actually make these connections in a 3D space like we just saw in Mozilla Hubs? Then it really comes to life in a different way. So you can see the different connections here. And if you want to see the Wikidata, you just hit Edit Sparkle here, and you can see that this is the Wikidata query. It's actually not that long, but you just need to know the different Wikidata items here. Oops, actually, you're not seeing it. Sorry. Let me bring that up. If I bring it in here, this is the Wikidata query. You can see that this code all stays the same for any query that does that graph. You just have to list the Wikidata items in this list right there, and it'll do the job. So if you go in here and hit the play button, you'll get that funky graph there. So we'll probably spend another episode just talking about how you can do more of these graphs. But Wikidata query is super powerful because you can do all these different types of visualizations depending on what kind of data you bring back from a query. All right. Any last words for folks? We covered a lot in 50 minutes here. Rosie, what's your next thing that you're working on this week?
I'm back to working on women writers, and some of these women, what they shared in common, they were also missionaries. So think back 19th century, and they kept memoirs, they wrote letters, and we were able to compile that together in order to be able to create some pretty interesting articles about these women who otherwise would have been forgotten. So that's kind of my thing this week.
Oh, that's exciting, because I remember, you just wrote an article about somebody I added a picture of to WikiCommons last year. I found there was the Free Library of Philadelphia put up this scan and put online a whole bunch of portraits of women from the 17th and 18th centuries, or the 18th and 19th century, sorry. And I just dumped a bunch of them in WikiCommons, and it's nice to see people taking those and running with them.
Right. And so, I remember writing you a note about that, thanking you for uploading the image, which just sat all by itself in WikiCommons until I went ahead and created this article, and I thought, oh, I wonder if there's actually going to be an image of her. Sometimes these authors and missionaries are so obscure, but there it was. Let's see if I can find her.
Oh yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
Do you remember her name?
Yeah, I don't, but I've got the list of all the articles I've created in 2020 in front of me, and I'm trying to kind of go through that to see. I think it might have been Marianne Lith, but this is being slow. No, it's not that one.
Sarah Lanham Smith, maybe?
Yes. Let's look at that one. It's taking a moment to pop up.
I got it up.
Do you have it up? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think missionaries, especially female missionaries, there's something they have a lot of contributions that have really been overlooked, because we think of missionaries as just, spreading the word, and we're a more secular society now, so it doesn't matter, right? But a lot of them, they set up schools, a lot of schools that still exist. They treat people for illnesses, and we're nurses, much like the folks that are fighting the pandemic today. So
they were doctors too. Yeah. And in the case of Sarah Lanham Smith, you can see that she established a school for girls, and that school has now become the Lebanese American University. I mean, here's somebody who started something way back in the early 19th century, and the fruits of her labor is a university that still stands today. So, so not so obscure and not so unnotable. Certainly someone we didn't know about before, and now she has an article, and kudos to you. You've got a photo of her, and that, the thing about one picture is worth 1,000 words. So I don't think this article is 1,000 words, but the picture improves it.
Yeah, and I think that's it's that's the most exciting thing about Wikimedia projects for me, is like you can connect the dots, and you can also connect different people's individual efforts in ways that you can't do anywhere else.
Right. And Rob, what are you going to be working on this week?
Probably more portraits of dead people. So if anyone knows any good museum websites I can raid, I've got some people gave me some really good suggestions, and I'm always on the lookout for more.
Great. Richard, what are you going to be working on?
I'm going to see if I can squeeze more emerging cultural phenomenon into Wikipedia, speaking past the nobility rules, and maybe some more art stuff. And I'm going to see if there's. I've been trying to think if there's, and some other people have been looking at this too. If there are topics that don't quite fit in Wikipedia that would be useful, that are related to the coronavirus crisis, and see if we can help make a home for that and some other projects.
Yeah, we didn't mention another article that had been created as well. Oh, and Thomas said, yes, we definitely could use more interaction and another.
Oh, I love Mentimeter.
Yeah, Mentimeter would be awesome. And if we time it right, because right now a lot of Europe is asleep, so we could definitely have like half the audience we could have. But yeah, if we plan it for a time frame that would be more inclusive, that would be great too. Something that we didn't mention is the creation of this article, which was done by Liam Wyatt, or led by Liam Wyatt, the impact of the 2019 to 20 coronavirus pandemic on the arts and cultural heritage, a title anyone could guess.
Yeah, so I think it should just be coronavirus impact on X and whatever. I mean, that is not quite accepted, but I plan on making a form proposal for it because it's annoying.
And it might be that the nav box at the bottom reflects that. I don't know. Impact. So impacts right here. See that? So I guess that's the easiest way to navigate to it, is to find this list. But not everyone knows to look here.
Video games.
And we still don't have music. Music is like a huge one.
We
still don't have the internet. We have the internet is a tiny section of science and technology, which it really shouldn't be.
So yours is here.
Oh yeah.
There's
There's
plenty of work to
lot
be
more.
done. And you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be a healthcare practitioner to be able to jump in here and help with these articles. And, you know, like we were talking about this new article that Andrew created just today on the N95 mask, you know, very valid, important article. It didn't exist before. So, you know, we could use a lot more hands to kind of sort out what's missing and then just jump in there and work on it, create it.
Yeah, and everyone's contributions matter, except for the people whose contributions include putting articles up for deletion.
I was shocked by this. So impact on the food industry has been put up for deletion. Anyone want to guess what the balance is? Delete or keep? What do you think? What's the leaning?
Oh, this would be a great time for a quiz or a poll.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would think
Say keep, right?
I would say at least 80% keep. I would be surprised if.
I think it's 50-50. Talk about the
I haven't seen the
Really?
state of the article.
geekiest game show on the internet is
Oh.
4 Wikimedians guessing
Yeah.
whether the
We
article
do above or below.
That's we need a Mentimeter.
Mentimeter. All right, let's see. What is the verdict here? Keep, draftify, keep. Oh, okay, keep. Yeah, keep.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Wow, my faith is restored in the community somewhat.
For about 10 minutes.
But it looks like it's huge. It's a huge article. Look at that. It should probably be 3 times longer. I mean, it's like, what has it not touched in terms of restaurants, right?
It should probably be split up into different continents or, you know, perhaps even different countries, but you have to start somewhere, and this is the start.
Right. Look at this one. Impact of the 2019-20 coronavirus pandemic on the restaurant industry in the United States. That gets more specific. Oh, graders. I love that ice cream. Look at that. Oh, wow. So this is probably in impacts and restaurants United States. So only US has a single entry right there. You know.
So far.
Yep.
I thought I saw some stuff in that article about, I saw somewhere where you were clicking around about restaurants in other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you just do the generic
I see.
Yeah.
It's food industry, and then, you know, I mean, people can talk about like groceries. Does that fit in as well? So
Right.
a lot of it there hasn't been like a top-down look at all the stuff that sort of emerged over the last couple of weeks. And so if you have some ideas, I think you suggest going to some top pages.
Wikipedias are not always great at
And photos too would be helpful.
This is pretty amazing if you think about it. Look at this. I expand locations. Look at all these. These are all unique articles. Impact of
There's even articles about individual cruise ships.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, scroll down.
Oh my gosh.
All the cruise ships.
Oh my gosh. Look at that. That's amazing. Wow.
They've pretty good article on, I think, Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of other localities.
This is impressive.
Wow. That's amazing. Oh. Wow. It is impressive. So what am I going to be working on? Well, I think something that Richard and I were working on before coronavirus was a training for interns at the Met Museum. So we had thought of, the Met said, we're going to have 30 to 40 interns that start in this pretty prestigious internship there, and then we could spend a whole afternoon teaching them about Wikipedia and Wikidata, and that would have been awesome. Except now, I'm pretty sure all those programs are in limbo. Not in limbo. They're not going to happen. Same thing with Smithsonian. There was an interest in Smithsonian for doing something like that. So what might we be able to do instead of a face-to-face training? And maybe it's a bigger concept of, come June, when you have all these folks who won't be able to do face-to-face, they will not be able to do face-to-face internships. Maybe we do something like a Google Summer of Code, where we have people, virtually help pitch in on topics related to their institutions. Of course, we'd have to train folks on COI issues, conflict of interest, and declaration. But this could be kind of like a big public works stepper project if we have all these college students and high school students who won't have any real face-to-face internships. Maybe there's some way to harness that energy and that interest in doing something for Wikipedia or Wikidata.
Maybe something with some sort of structure so they could come away with something they could put on their CV or something.
Right.
That could be useful in lieu of the internship they can't have. It wouldn't be the same equivalent, of course, but it could be something. There's going to be a lot of rethinking about everything that we're doing. And
I think it's already happening. I think there
absolutely.
are all of these organizations where in every kind of sector, not just GLAM, not just galleries, libraries, archives, museums, but government and healthcare and so forth, where, it's like all of a sudden people are sitting at home and they're working from their home, and yet they have all of these collections and information that's associated with their organization. And it's like, well, how do we adapt?
Right.
And this is where I think, maybe this is a unique opportunity for us to kind of do things differently, where, we were so used to being the people who edit from our homes, and then we come together and we do these edit-a-thons with 20, 30 people in some venue, and then we all split up. Maybe we start doing things differently and we become a lot more active online with these organizations and kind of help them move into having Wikipedia, Wikidata be part of their workflow in a way that they just didn't think about before because they were so busy with everything else. But now they have this, it's like opportunities knocking, so don't be in the bar drinking.
It's a strategic moment. So
it is, and it's like kind of we're living exactly what we were talking about in strategy, right? But we've been forced to fast forward it and implement it much faster.
That's the silver lining of what we're going through.
Right. Exactly. Well, thanks all of you for joining us on the spur of the moment for this live stream to multiple platforms. You are on the cutting edge. I don't think any of you have ever been broadcast to 4 platforms at the same time on the internet: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Oh, and don't forget our live streams on MySpace, Friendster, Zanga, and AOL Instant Messenger.
And Orkut. Yes. So we will do more of these, and we appreciate the folks who commented. Thanks so much for commenting, being part of the virtual world, Kevin and other folks. We want to try these experiments. It's a unique time where everyone is hunkering down, and never let a crisis go to waste. Try these different things, virtual worlds, different ways of interacting, polling, connecting our community. And in the meantime, maybe bringing in folks who are new to the Wikipedia community and getting a little bit of a tour behind the scenes. And I love these types of things because you can actually see human faces that are working with Wikipedia. And most of the time when people visit Wikipedia, they have no idea who is editing and what's going on behind the scenes. So anything that we can do to kind of show some humanity of Wikipedia and the Wikimedia community, I think that's a great thing. So thanks for being part of this, and we hope you'll be back soon to be part of this.
And stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Hunker down and contact us at wikipediaweekly.org. Contact Richard or myself on social media or on Wiki. And
the Wikipedia Weekly Facebook group.
Yes, that's right. So one of the most active places in our community is Facebook, oddly enough. The complete opposite of open community, but it is the highest signal, I think, right now. So if you go to facebook.com and you go to Wikipedia Weekly as a group, you can request to be added and just answer the 2 simple questions there, and you'll be in. And so that's it for episode 129, the WALRUS Overtime Zoom Bombing Your Quarantini episode. And see you next time.